Hello and welcome back to the Avoid the Tyrewall podcast. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Sabré Cook. Sabré, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, Teagan. I guess trying to summarize it, I was born and raised in Grand Junction, Colorado, and my father used to race motocross and supercross professionally, and he and my mom did not want us racing motorcycles, so we got into go-karting. Eventually, obviously took to that and went on to kart professionally, and then finally got enough sponsorship and support to run my first car race. That wasn't till 2017. So by then I was almost 23 years old, which is not ideal timing wise. But kept at it, had some really great opportunities come my way. I ran in USF 2000, USF 4, qualified for W Series and ran in that for technically 3 seasons if you count the esports season. I also went to school for mechanical engineering and graduated with my bachelor's in 2017. So worked for Renault F1. I worked for Infinity. I worked for Formula Mazda, and more recently, I worked for Carrera Autosport and IndyCar. And ECR, of course, is their supporting team. And then on top of that, a few different GT racing series. Never a full season in a GT series, but just a bit here and there. Some endurance stuff. I raced at Nürburgring in 2021 as well, in the VLN race. And then I unfortunately got injured in 2021 as well. So last year I went under surgery and a ton of rehab and recovery and returned back to racing later last year. And this year I've won a scholarship shootout for a full ride in the Porsche Carrera Cup with Kelly Moss Road and Race. So I will be competing in that. Our first race is in March, but that's just a very compact version of who I am and what I'm doing currently.
So we know why you started racing, but what age did you start?
I was just before I was 8 years old, I started karting, but I'd actually ridden a motorcycle before. I think I was maybe 5 years old.
Cannot see if I did that.
I think it was quite dangerous. I'm pretty sure I almost crashed into a car or something, but
in the words of Kelly Clarkson, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So can you describe the W Series application or selection process to us?
Yeah, so there had been kind of rumors about this all-female series that was coming together back in, I think it was like 2017, maybe was the first time I heard of it. And then eventually came to fruition, and they asked us to submit our applications. They just sent us an email, sent us the application, filled it out, sent it back. That was towards the middle end of 2018. And then about 60 of us were selected to go to the first evaluation event in Milk, Austria. And there we literally got to do pretty much anything. And it was so cool and such a good kind of training experience, as well as obviously a test. But we did anything from driving front wheel drive, rear wheel drive. We did drifting. We had to do, certain circuits around the track. We'd have to drift part of the circuit and then just be fast the rest of it. We drove on kick plates. We drove through fountains. We did a smooth driving test on track. We did a consistency test on track. We got to drive a roll car, and we did physical tests, physical fitness tests. We took some mental exams, but supposedly those didn't count in our final score. It was just based off of our driving performance on track. So we were ranked within our groups, and whoever was the top half of the groups is who went to the next stage. So the end of those few days in Austria, the top half of us was selected to go to the next event, which was in Almeria, Spain. And we got to actually drive the W Series F3 cars. So we just basically did test sessions and evaluated our consistency, our outright pace, how we worked with the engineers, how we understood the cars, how we progressed. So there was 12 of us that got picked early on after the first 2 days. And then the last day was a shootout from with the rest of the girls for the last 6 spots, plus the 2 reserve. And so after all of that, then everybody was announced as the first W Series grid for 2020 or 2019.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It was, but it was fun in some ways.
You said about them emailing you. Did you have to like go on the internet or apply, or like was it just an email direct to you? And were you like, what is this slightly dodgy sounding email?
No, I like connections that I had in the racing world had like known about it and they'd been contacted about it, or like they'd been asked like, do you know like girls that would be good for this? And so those connections of mine have reached out to me and be like, look, this is what's going on, like, do you think you'd be interested? And I was, at first I wasn't so sure about it, but I got talked into it. And then they basically, W Series then reached out over email and was like, hey, we'd love for you to apply, here's the application. And then I filled that out.
Fab. Do you think that more needs to be done for women in motorsport? So obviously we've seen that W Series has been, I don't know if cancelled is the right word, but we'll say cancelled. And I feel like women's avenues in motorsport are shut. So do you think more needs to be done?
I think more needs to be done in general to make the sport accessible for anyone, not just the wealthy. I think it's not always a problem that's just directed towards being female. Like, while there is plenty of obstacles that we have to deal with that men do not, I think it's kind of a general motorsports problem, but it is incredibly hard as a woman to raise the funding. And I didn't want to believe that at first, but if you look at the data, I mean, men get, it's like 99.6% of sports sponsorship a year, and women get 0.4%. So there's obviously something wrong, like with the way people view women's sports and the way they view investing in them. So I really think that I'm hoping that that is changing, and I really think it is, but it's just changing slowly, right? Like, women have been considered the second to men for millennia, so it's not going to change in 5 years. Yeah. So it is coming, but I think it all kind of needs to start at the grassroots level from the very beginning, believing that those girls can have the same amount of chance if given the right resources from a young age.
Yeah, I do agree with you. And so as a content creator, I don't have loads of followers on like TikTok or anything, but the sexism, I don't know if it's just because I'm a woman, but the sexism directed towards me and my content, I'm like, are you having a giggle right now? Like, really?
It's unfortunately it's really, it's just very sad. Like, and I'm hoping that, like, I feel like our generation, that we grew up in, is more used to seeing women in roles that are similar to a man. So I feel less like those comments get made by our generation, and I feel like it's kind of the older generations that has, they have the old mindset. So I'm really hoping that, as these next few years come in, that we're going to see a big shift. But it's still going to take some people paying attention to, the stigmas that are out there and that we think is completely normal and okay.
Yeah, what you were saying about the older generation, it made me think of like Grid Girls and how like certain series in the UK still have them, like the British touring cars, but how F1 have abolished Grid Girls. I think there's still a stigma. Is that a word? I have no idea.
Yeah, stigma.
Yeah, there's still a stigma around like Grid Girls and that sort of thing.
Yeah, you're more likely, like, at a racetrack, when you show up, they usually don't think that you're there to be a racing driver or an engineer. They usually think that you're there as, marketing, media, maybe, but that you're usually probably a wife or a girlfriend that's there supporting your husband or boyfriend.
It's so frustrating. So, who do you look up to in terms of like racing or in just general life?
I would say I guess, like, racing hero is probably Jim Clark. But I also look up to my dad very, very much. He's taught me a lot. He was in the motorcycle world, which, we had to learn a lot about the car world, but he's been such a great mentor for me growing up. But I just take like little bits from all the greats. Like, I don't feel like there's one person that is, this perfect human, because that's what we are. We're human. But yeah, I would, if anybody, I would say probably.
You mentioned Jim Clark. I feel like as a driver, so obviously two-time champion, I feel like as a driver he is massively underrated by everyone, because when you hear about the greats, you hear about Schumacher, Hamilton, Senna, Vettel, etc. But he's one that's like never brought up, but he was thought to be one of the greatest, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he gets missed out a lot, and I don't know if it's because he died young and he never got to finish, his amazing career. But he won at every level, right? Like I think he won the 500 and the F1 World Championship in the same year, didn't he? So he's just an amazing driver, and I think he's definitely highly underrated.
There are certain champions, like I did a series last year. Sorry, I've gone on a tangent here, but
No, no.
I did a series last year on Instagram of like the F1 World Champions, and I'd never heard of some of them, and like Alan Jones, like he is never heard about nowadays.
Oh God, I could even tell you if I remember his name.
1980 champion, I think.
Hmm.
So, obviously you mentioned being a mechanical engineer. What qualifications do you need to be one of those?
So so in the US, to get your engineering degree, usually you go for about 4.5 years. And by the end of it, if you obviously pass all your classes and requirements, you get your degree. But like stuff that we had to take is obviously tons of mathematics. Like we took well through calculus and all the way, differential equations. And then we take, several forms of physics, several chemistry. It depends on like what discipline you want to focus on. So like as a mechanical, I didn't have to take as much chemistry, and then we take like mechanics of materials. You have to learn how to code in MATLAB. That was the language that we were mostly reliant on in our classes. And then you take fluids, obviously, but you can take like maybe fluids too, or like an advanced thermodynamics class as well, if that you want that to be more of your specialty. But just took the pretty normal mechanical engineering role at the Colorado School of Mines, and graduated after 4.5 years.
Well, that you lost me at the first sentence. Sounds very impressive. So what does your role as a mechanical engineer actually entail?
It depends on what company I'm working for and like what they've hired me as in that role to do. So like when I worked for Infinity, I was a vehicle test engineer. But then like when I worked for Renault F1, I was a suspension composite design engineer. For the Mazda, I was like a final design and integration engineer. And then for Beretta, I was an assistant performance engineer. So all of those did very different things. So it really just depends on what job you're talking.
All equally as impressive.
All equally fun in some ways.
What is the most memorable race of your career?
Oh, that's tough. I would say one of the ones I enjoyed the most, I actually think of a karting race that comes to my mind. It was the first pro shifter race that I was entered in after I got my pro license. And I didn't know how I was going to do, but I was just going to do the best that I could. And I remember I ended up fighting for the win, and it was just such a fun experience. And it was kind of at night, and like you can see the sparks flying off the go-karts and stuff like that. So it was just like a great, I felt like the most me during that race. But I also remember like the first time we raced at Brands Hatch and W Series was just mega, and I loved it. I guess those ones would be first ones that stand out in my mind. But the first time I raced at Nürburgring too, I mean, that was pretty amazing. I think anytime you get to experience that, it's always
They're all equally as cool, to be fair. In 2023, you're racing the Porsche Carrera Cup North America. How do you think that this will compare against the other series, which you previously mentioned, that you've raced in?
I think it'll be highly competitive, obviously. I think it's similar kind of to, racing in Indy Pro 2000, or similar to the competition level in W Series. So I think it's just, the GT version of those. And I'm really looking forward to running in it. And the fact that I get to race with Kelly Moss kind of makes me feel like a bit relieved, because I know that they're just an amazing team, and I feel really confident that I'll actually have the tools to be successful.
this is a really weird question, and it always gets a good response. But what's your workout program like?
Oh wow. So for right now, because coming back from the surgery, things are a little bit varied at the moment. Obviously I've built strength back since the surgery and been cleared to race again, but like right now we're really focused on mind muscle connection and rebuilding like the correct firing pattern in my hip, basically. So a lot of like my off-season training program has been really low weight and like very little reps and a very slow tempo with like lower body strength movements. So I would do that like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday and Thursdays are either like threshold intervals or a lactic capacity power intervals. And then the Saturday is usually a long cardio session with neck. And then I also do neck like Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it all kind of varies, but yeah, that's like the general layout. I would say is 3 days a week is full body strength, and then the other 2 days are like interval kind of cardio days, and the one is a long cardio day.
Who would be your dream teammate?
My dream teammate. I would love to do the Baja 1000 race with my dad. I think that would be a dream. We'd probably yell at each other and get in a bit of a bickering contest sometimes, but I think that would be such a special experience to do that with him.
Do you feel as though in your industry there is discrimination against you purely because of your gender?
From some people, yes, unfortunately.
Oh, it just sucks. What is your favorite track?
Favorite tracks, probably Branch Hatch, Spa, and Laguna Seca.
And then on the back of that, least favorite.
Oh, I feel like the tracks are going to be offended if I say it. Let's think. I didn't really. Actually, this weekend I raced at NOLA Motorsports Park, and it was fine. Like, but it's not like a track that I'm like, wow, yeah, I really want to go race there. It's very flat, but I mean, it's an okay track. There's a lot that are just like, yeah, it's a racetrack. I'm still having fun racing, but they're not like, wow, I'm really excited to race on this track.
Fair enough. Have you received any advice that stuck with you?
Oh, so many. I actually keep like a notepad in my phone that's like, self-development or like self-enlightening quotes or moments. I think the biggest one probably came from my driver coach, where he said, focus on the process. And that he told me that years ago. And it was like, if you focus on the process, that's all that you really can do. That is what you can control rather than focusing on the results. And I think bringing that into my outlook and perspective started to really change how I pursued things.
Was there a family/community feel within W Series, or did people just sort of keep to themselves?
There was definitely a big like kind of group feeling. The first year, I think, was the most. It did kind of get a little bit more segregated, I would say, like the last years, but that first year was a really fun time. I think everyone was just excited to be racing. We were excited to be around females, that shared our same passion and shared our same like effort for putting in the hard work to get where we were. So I think it was like a special coming together of all of us, even though we were obviously competing against each other.
Like, you keep the drama on track and just get on with it off track.
No. Yeah, exactly.
Question 1. Hang on, the page has gone floppy. At the 2008 Turkish Grand Prix, which record did Rubens Barrichello break, which has since been broken by Kimi Räikkönen and maybe Fernando Alonso?
Oh, is it like most amount of GPs that he's competed in?
Yep. Most race starts. But yeah, that's correct.
Most race starts. Yeah.
Which 3 races make up the Triple Crown of motorsports?
Le Mans.
Mhm.
Monaco. And Daytona?
Indy 500.
Oh, duh. I can't believe I missed that one. Oh,
There
why
we go.
did I
Give
say
you half.
Le Mans? Why did I don't even, I think I got Daytona on the brain because it's just about to happen this week.
Do you know who the only driver to ever win the Triple Crown is?
Mario Andretti.
Nope. Graham Hill.
Really? Mario never won Le Mans?
I have no idea. He was before my time.
I feel like I gotta check.
We've got to know. We've got to have the what's it called?
Oh, yeah. He got second at Le Mans. Dang.
Oh, that's terrible. That second at Le Mans.
He won everything else, but second at Le Mans.
In 1971, which team did Bernie Eccleston buy?
Why do I want to say Brabham?
That would be correct.
Okay. Yay.
Oh, this is difficult. I don't know which ones to ask. I'm trying to choose like nice ones. How many teams competed in the 2005 US Grand Prix?
How many teams? 14?
3.
What? Yeah, I had no idea. I was like, no idea.
It was the Tyre scandal one where they just kept blowing up.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I wasn't born at this point, but how long is the Nürburgring Nordschleife?
I should know that.
I
I
accept
want to
that
say
in
it's,
kilometers.
is it, can I say it in kilometers?
Yeah, that's fine.
I can't remember if it's 14.4 or 17 kilometers.
If you go the lower value, you're closer to it in miles.
Oh, what? Okay. Dang. Okay, let's just say it's 15 miles.
14.2, but I'll give you half a mile. What is Ferrari's nickname?
Ferrari's nickname. We're not talking about like the Tifosi or anything, right?
No, that's the fan nickname. If you
It's the fans.
the logo of the Ferrari, I'm trying to see if I've got anything Ferrari related around me, but the logo, there's an animal in the logo and it's doing something.
The horse is just like the bucking horse.
Close.
The rearing stallions. I don't know.
You were closer with the first one.
Rearing horse. I don't even know. If it's not, I don't know. But the horse is just like.
I've given you half for getting the horse part. It's the
I don't know.
the prancing horse.
He's not really prancing though.
I don't know.
He's like...
Taking it with Italy. What team was Jenson Button driving for when he won his title in 2009?
Should I know this? I can see the car. It's white. Braun.
Yeah, correct. Which team won both the Formula 2 and Formula 3 championships in 2020?
Oh, is it Prema? It's not Prema, is it?
It is Prema, yeah. Hey, okay, I've got one more written question. What is Sir Stirling Moss regarded as?
What is he regarded as?
If you want a hint, I can help.
Yeah, what? I don't know. Like,
something that he didn't get, but makes it, he's like super good. That doesn't help, does it? That really does not help.
Something that he didn't get is like second best, like, or is he? I thought wasn't he called like Mr. Motor Racing or something like that? Greatest,
Do you want me to tell you?
yeah.
The greatest driver to never win the championship.
That makes sense.
I hope my clue makes,
It makes sense now.
Now, can you name this track?
Coda.
Yeah, correct. So, grand total of 6.5, if my maths is correct.
It's not really passing because it's technically failing because it's just over 50%. I got a D.
At least you didn't get like 2 out of 10 like someone else did.
That's true.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of the Avoid the Tyrewall, and thank you very much to Sabré for agreeing to do this interview. See you next week. Bye.